Hello, and welcome to A Path Forward, a podcast that discusses the substance use crisis and the work being conducted in Otero, Crowley, Bent, and Conejos counties. Our goal is to help find solutions to the crisis, with a special emphasis on the response activities happening in southern rural Colorado counties. My name is Terry Schreiber, and I am your host. I am the CEO and founder of the Schreiber Research Group, or TSRG, a Colorado-based nonprofit working in partnership with the Otero County Health Department to bring you this podcast. The funding for this podcast is provided by the Health Resources and Services Administration, or HRSA. The Department of Health and Human Services is part of the Rural Communities Opioid Response Program, or RCORP implementation grant. Please know that the views and comments of presenters and guests are their own. Also, the views expressed by the speakers and moderators do not necessarily reflect the official policies of the Department of Health and Human Services, nor does mention of trade names, commercial practices, or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. In today's podcast, we are really focusing on part 2 of our 3-part segments on stigma. In part 1, we had the opportunity to interview Dr. Steve Wright and Dr. Heidi McNeely. Today, we're going to have more of a community response to what's happening related to stigma on the ground in Otero, Crowley, and Bent counties. Before I get into the questions, I want to give you some background information for the listening audience. There are 5 types of stigma that we talked about in the last podcast. The first is called self-stigma. This is stigma that is internalized within the person. The second is anticipated stigma, when someone anticipates or expects that they're going to be stigmatized. The third is perceived stigma. What do others think about me? How might I be perceived in a specific light that makes me feel uncomfortable? For example, I might be perceived as untrustworthy. The fourth is enacted stigma. That is a type of stigma that we can actually see and feel and measure. For example, if something is overt, that we can actually see when someone is treated in a very negative way, or specifically excluding someone because of their substance use. This can be degrading or demeaning. The fifth type of stigma is called structural stigma. These are things that are actually embedded into our laws and policies, and the way we as a society respond to individuals who use substances. This is a particularly difficult one, because it could take years and years to shift and move perceptions and society's response. So today we're going to start by asking some questions. I want to know from Lisa Trigilio from Fort Lyon and Arlene Cooke from the Otero County Health Department. Do either of you see examples of either self-anticipated, perceived, enacted, or structural stigma in your daily work environments? I'll start with you, Lisa.
Okay, sure. I think one of the ones that we just talked about a few moments ago is, I believe it probably falls under structural, where people are always asking the residents questions, and they treat them as though they're in trouble because they're at the fort. And I think part of that is because it used to be a prison. And so people are still thinking it's operating as a prison. So I think that is a clear indication of that stigma.
So let me ask Arlene, do you ever see anything like that or any of the other types of stigma?
As far as structural, I mean, I'm sure there is, but I can't really talk on that too much at this point. The other types, I definitely see, especially with the people that I work with. The self stigma kind of goes hand in hand with addiction or substance use. You've got so many people and the people that would normally support you that are no longer supporting you because of what you're going through, and that makes you feel a certain way about yourself, and kind of doubt yourself, and it kind of keeps you in a rut because you don't have the self-confidence to try and get out of that. So
Thank you. And Lisa, we talked about this a little bit earlier today, where some of the residents at Fort Lyon may actually be experiencing self-stigma as well. Have you observed that in your work?
Absolutely. And I think, they they know that they've made, some poor life decisions along the way, and they've got, we always refer to it as baggage. That's not a nice term, but that's what it is. And they carry it around, and it's hard to get over that and to learn to like yourself again, and so forth. And I really think that they learn to give themselves a break as they go through their recovery journey, realize that, I am a good person and I'm worthy of good things in life. And I think that's what a recovery program helps them with.
Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about the anticipated. And I don't want anyone to share any specific examples because we know this is a small, tight knit community and we don't want to throw anyone under the bus or say anything too negative. But is it possible that some of the clients that both of you work with may anticipate when they go for treatment recovery, go to the pharmacy, go to various places, they may anticipate how they might be treated? Is that something you're aware of, Arlene?
Yeah, absolutely. That's, a lot of the people that I talk to are uncomfortable going into a doctor's office because they have had, negative things said like just, oh, well, they're high, or, things like that are said in the office that other people are hearing. So they're already afraid of, going in there to ask for help or to get an abscess treated or to try and get into treatment because it kind of gets everywhere. And I think one of the big issues here is that everybody knows somebody else that might know that person, and they may not feel that what they're there for is going to be kept confidential. And I think it's a big barrier. I know some of the people that I've talked to would prefer to go to Pueblo or to go to another area because they're afraid of what might happen locally because of the stigma. And, when they see that person at Walmart or they see them somewhere else, are they going to be judged based on the fact that they are in to get treatment?
What about you, Lisa? Is this something you may have observed?
Yeah, and a lot of this comes from listening to residents themselves talk to me about it. When they might seek help with an ailment, they may have hurt their ankle or whatever. They perceive that the providers are believing they're drug seeking when they go to get help. They don't want to prescribe any, meds that, might be perceived as, to get high on and so forth. So I think that they really struggle with getting help when they really do have an issue that does need treated. Um,
Thank you. So one of the things we talk about in our daily work is if you can find a path of recovery and you can go to treatment or you can go to sober living, maybe a place like Fort Lyon, but then you have to take the next steps. You have to figure out, well, how do I reintegrate into society? How do I find employment or a career path or purpose? And so my question to you is, what can we do in this region to create a more friendly path, if you will, to recovery? And it could be the workforce environment, it could be access to housing, it could be all sorts of things. What do you recommend?
I think for me, for employers, if they would give people an opportunity, be a second chance employer, where you have a supportive environment for people that are in recovery, give them time to perhaps, go to a recovery meeting, or as we talked about before, if they have to go, if they're on methadone or something, giving them the time to go get their treatment, and so forth. And I just think being educated on really what a substance use disorder is, that it is a sickness. It's not a chosen, someone isn't born wanting to grow up to be, a drug addict and so forth. And I think just having more understanding and be educated.
So let's talk about that for a minute. So, in a normal employment situation, you may have to take off an hour or two here or there to go to the dentist, to have a doctor appointment. And if you are a person who uses medications for opioid use disorder and you have to go to a methadone clinic or you need to go get a prescription refilled, what can the community here do around allowing that time be treated just like any other kind of medical time off? Have you thought about that, or do you have any suggestions?
Um, for me, like I feel like it's just like any other medical condition. Like it shouldn't matter what you're going for or why. If you have a medical condition and you've shared that with your employer and that is what you need to do for you, that's something that shouldn't matter at all to any employer in my opinion. And I think that, allowing more flexibility in the workplace, if it's a place that that whatever you're doing allows, that matters. Your mental health, being able to take a personal day when you're going through hell is important, for anyone to be able to do, but especially people that are newly in recovery and trying to reintegrate themselves into being a productive part of the community. It's especially important.
So some of the time, Lisa, when you and I are talking, we discuss the perception of Fort Lyon, the perception of people who live at Fort Lyon. So my question to you is really about what can the community do to learn more about the actual work that's going on, to become more familiar with the success of the work that's going on. Do you have any suggestions?
I could talk a lot about this, but I would just encourage anyone interested to reach out to me. I can give my personal information. Come and really see what we really do and what's out there. You read a lot of things that aren't true, not accurate. Come and see why we celebrate what we do, because everyone that's been to Fort Lyon is amazed at how big it is and how much is going on out there and how wonderful these residents are and how hard they are at fighting for a better life.
That's fantastic. Arlene, I know that in your daily work, sometimes you're in the jails, sometimes you're talking to the people at probation. Do you have any suggestions on how the community can embrace some of the important work that's going on so that people can take a path towards recovery?
Um, I think that something that might help is if people would really realize, some of the individuals that have come out of Fort Lyon, some of the individuals who have been through the courts and see their story now, that they're in the community, they're working, they have housing, they're doing everything that the community perceives as what they should be doing. um, and noticing those success stories. And I think that when you see the success stories, it gives you hope and inspiration that with helping others along, they can also achieve the same thing. So
So you and I were talking recently about an event that you held where you were visibly or noticing visibly the changes in some of the community that you've been working with. Can you just talk a little bit about what that was like for you in that moment?
um yeah, definitely. The event that we held and some of the individuals that attended that are, in recovery, are people that I have worked with for years, through their addictions, active use, that type of stuff. And some of them disappeared for a while. I didn't know what happened to them. I've wondered and wondered. And when I was able to see them at a recovery event and hear their stories and where they are now, that truly, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain like what it truly did, but it brought so much peace to my heart to see these individuals that were living in an abandoned house that I would, try and find propane for them because they were freezing and they had no heat, they had nothing. And then to to talk to them and to be, I, not that I want the thank yous or anything, but just that the kindness made such a big difference in their life and giving them, just the basics that they needed to be able to build towards having a full recovery and going to school and getting things together for your children. Like that was, I don't even know what word describes it, but it's the best feeling you could ever imagine, to help somebody and follow them through their journey and actually see like how beautiful it is when they get there. So,
So we're going to keep this segment very short, but I would like to ask both of you if you have any closing remarks that you would like to share specific to the different categories of stigma or as it relates to a recovery-friendly workplace, or anything else that you would like the listening audience to hear?
I think it would be wonderful to reach out to those that are still struggling in their addiction and have yet to reach out or have relapsed and need help again. Don't quit trying and don't quit believing in yourself. You just need help and reach out and get it. And if Fort Lyon can help, we're there. If not, find somewhere else. But there's a great life out there. And if you choose recovery, there's just so many wonderful things you can experience.
Thank you, Lisa. What about you, Arlene?
I think one of the things that would be very beneficial to a lot of people in the community is the families and educating themselves on substance use. When our loved one that is going through their addiction does things that make us want to turn away, or kind of just cut them off because of all of the things that go with their addiction. I think that it's important, like, to still be there the best that you can, and that's not saying to not maintain strong boundaries and to enable or allow them to take advantage of you, but to let them know that I'm always here. I may not do this for you, but I am here to talk to you. I am here to support you. And, when you're ready to do this, come to me, like, let's do it, and even later when they're doing better in their recovery, don't keep that same mindset that, you've done this in the past, so I see you doing this again. This is what's going to happen again, when it's completely different. I mean, I have an individual that struggled with addiction at one point in time and is doing much better now. Is working, is doing everything that they can to better themselves, but yet there are people in the family that still feel that the things that happened prior to them getting into recovery are going to be a repeat. So they see, little flags that, oh, that they're going to do this. This is what's going on, when that may not be even close to the truth. So I would suggest definitely communicating with that individual and telling them what you're seeing, that this is something that you're noticing, like, where are they at? And realizing, like, talking to them and realizing, okay, this was their intention in this, or okay, they're struggling with their recovery. Maybe we need to get them into some different treatment. It would be hugely beneficial. And, like, it's kind of the second chances thing. Like, yes, still maintain your boundaries and still pay attention to what's going on, but also be open to truly supporting that person and helping them along the way, whether they're struggling, they're relapsing. Helping them get back on track is what really matters, I think.
Thank you. And I just want to have one follow-up with Lisa. Second chances is a really important concept for you. Can you tell us why?
With employers?
With employers and giving people an opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, there's not anyone on this earth that hasn't made, the wrong choice at one time or another in their life, or and drug use, alcohol use is, they deserve another chance. I think, like, with families, like Arlene was saying, don't give up, but also a family should consider maybe going to Al-Anon meetings and get support for themselves through the recovery, because there's a lot of vicarious trauma that comes with being the family member as well. And so you need help too, to be a good support for someone in addiction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's so many people that they don't know that there's support for them. They're just frustrated and struggling. So they're like, for my own well-being, you're done. I'm cutting you off. And I understand, like, you have to take care of yourself, but also your loved one that's struggling still needs you, even if they're doing things that make you believe you need to just let go of it, so.
Well, I think at Fort Lyon, we've seen so much family reunification, and it is a wonderful thing to see. People haven't ever seen their grandchildren, and now, because they've got a strong recovery program, there's possibilities there, and it's just a wonderful thing to see. It really is.
Thank you for tuning in to A Path Forward, a podcast funded by HRSA, or the Health Resources and Services Administration, and brought to you by the Schreiber Research Group and Comprehensive IT Solutions. We want to thank Lisa Trigilio and Arlene Cooke for joining us today as we talked about the community responses to stigma that are happening in Otero, Crowley, and Bent counties. This is part 2 of a 3-part segment, and we hope that you will join us next time. Thank you so much. This is Terry Schreiber.